Okay, hello everybody. Thank you very much for joining us today on our webinar. We're going to have a great topic here today. I'm very excited about it. It's called Modular Web Design. It's something that at the MP Group we've been working on for quite some time. And now we're pretty much dedicated to almost 100% of our projects in the web space are going to be built in a modular methodology. So I've been working, 3-4 years at least, and we practiced how we work through the process. It's very exciting. So let me just get started here by going into what our agenda is going to be. First, I'm going to just introduce myself, go on to the overview of what this topic's all about. We're going to talk about web templates, how those work, talk about modular design in particular, the benefits, the tech considerations, and then we're going to go into a couple of examples that I have prepared to show you, and from there some Q&A, and eventually we're going to wrap it up and send you all home. So just to get started, tell you who I am. My name is Peter Check, CEO, co-founder of the New Possibilities Group. We are based in northern New Jersey, maybe about 15 miles out of Manhattan. I was a co-founder back in 2001, so I've been doing this for about 15 years. And my personal background is custom web development, user experience, user interfaces, digital marketing. Pretty much I'm kind of like the CTO that you bring in, the mercenary CTO to solve your challenges, and either I bring my team or I help you, assemble a team of your own to be able to, solve those problems. So basically what we do in a nutshell is we're experts in the development of safe and secure custom content management systems. We focus on custom web development and design to create websites and applications for clients with complex requirements. So you don't see us working on a lot of simple restaurant websites or very simple informational websites. Not really what we do here. We did start with that kind of background 15 years ago, but now we're focused on more complex problems that require custom solutions to be able to be solved. Our experience, we work across a variety of different industries. We're not in any one particular industry in terms of the solutions that we bring. So you'll see here we have nonprofits, telecom, healthcare, a lot of publishing companies. We have electronics and then banks. So in financial services. So we have worked in a variety of different places. Who are you? Well, hopefully you're here because you're tired of the old school web design methodology. For 15 years people have been, or even longer, for 20 years, people have been making these websites the same way. And maybe you're tired of that. Maybe you're an early adapter for new techniques and you want to know exactly what this modular stuff is all about. Or maybe you're about to undergo or are undergoing a new design project. And there's also a good chance your inbox was flooded because I emailed you 50 times saying to come by. Regardless, I'm happy you're here and that you can participate in this webinar about this great concept. So from an overview perspective, what is modular web design? So it's a new way of looking at web design. It eliminates the template methodology that's prevalent with so many systems today. One of the benefits is it allows for faster, cheaper redesigns, meaning you're going to get your project to market faster. And there's also a longevity. When you build a framework around this type of methodology, you can count on what you've set up to last you for quite some time because you're going to be building things in a logical way. You're not going to be building on a basis of what someone is telling you to do, like a WordPress or a Drupal that are kind of rigid in how they're set up. So this new methodology is going to give you longevity. A little bit of background about the theory. According to Wikipedia, I put the definition here, modular design, or modularity in design, is a design approach that subdivides a system into smaller parts called modules or skids that can be independently created and then used in different systems. So at the top level, the focus is reusable parts, not templates. So think Legos. Legos are a great example. We've all been taught modular design from a very young age. As a kid, Legos are my favorite toy to spend time with. My daughter, I got her a lot of Legos for Christmas. It puts your mind, it helps you condition your mind to be to be predisposed to appreciate the concept of modular design. Right now, this is prevalent in industry, and you may not even know it. Automaking, construction, furniture. 3 examples I'm going to go through today, but in a ton of other places as well. So just to take a look at automobile manufacturing, excuse me, Volkswagen Group is, despite their problems with diesel engines of late, these guys have done a really great job acquiring brands and then molding them into their manufacturing workflow. Basically, VW Group has all these different brands that you see right here. Some of them you might not be familiar with, but obviously VW, Audi, Bentley, Porsche, Lamborghini. But you also have some of these other European manufacturers such as Skoda, which is actually, I believe it's Czech, so it should be appropriate for me. And also, I'm not sure is it Sia? I don't know. But all these different manufacturers are now, or brands are now under one manufacturer, and they're using a commonality. So their universal platform is increasing profitability, and it's streamlining the manufacturing process. And one example that most of us here in the U.S. would know about is these three different models of cars. On the low end, you have the Volkswagen Touareg. On the middle of the line, you have the Audi Q7, and at the top of the line, you have the Porsche. I believe it's a Cayenne, and if I'm wrong, somebody can tell me about it. Feel free to do that, by the way, in the questions section. So these three are completely, they're different vehicles, different brands, different price points, obviously, but they use modular parts. They're all based on the same chassis. They're all, they might use the same engine from one company to another. I happen to be an Audi driver myself, so I'm a little bit, I'm not exactly impartial to the conversation about cars, but I can tell you that in my Audi there are parts with VW logos. I also have an old Volkswagen Golf that I keep around just for the sake of having something with a stick shift to drive for fun, and that car has Audi logos in it. So I'm not familiar with Porsche, a little bit outside my range right now, but I'm pretty sure that if you look inside a Porsche, you're going to see parts that are coming from Audi or Volkswagen, which I guess if you're buying the top of the line, you don't want to see those logos, but this is the reality of their manufacturing process. Another example is construction. You see this everywhere now. I saw in my neighborhood, somebody built a house. It was done in like 2 weeks. They brought it in on trucks, and they would take these prefabricated parts, made it, they were wood beams and wood framing, and with a crane they put them together, and the house it's a beautiful house. It's huge. This house is probably like 4,000 or 5,000 square feet on top of a hill, and you couldn't even tell it came in parts. And interesting, I wonder if they even tell the people who buy it that it came in parts. But why would it matter? It's still a wood-framed house, the same as if it was built there. In fact, the manufacturing quality is probably better, which is a benefit of doing this. But prefabricated parts, as I said here, mean faster construction, lower labor costs, quicker time to market. And in China, they're doing this with commercial buildings, and I think this is amazing. This is the Mini Sky City. That's the name of this building. It's in Changsha, in the Hunan province. So there you go. And I'm not going to go through the whole quote here, but basically they were building 3 floors a day. This building is 57 stories and was built in 19 days, which I think is absolutely incredible. It's the tallest structure, I think, well, definitely in the next picture here, but I believe in the town itself. Again, think about this for a second. 19 days for 57 stories. 57-story building, you can imagine how long that takes here with traditional manufacturing methods. So that's construction. As I said, we see it in home building, you see it in commercial buildings. This is a company here. I know they're here in northern New Jersey. I'm not sure if they're national or not, but they're based at the mall. You go to the mall, and they have these really comfy beanbag type things that they throw you into it when you're at the store, literally, and you fall into it, and you're like, oh man, this is the most comfortable thing ever. But basically, it's low cost, super comfortable furniture, as I said, and it's modular for the consumer. So the consumer can go and buy the parts and assemble it any way they want with this new thing they call a sectional, which is based on their original, beanbag concept. And you see this in furniture pretty much everywhere. You see it with, IKEA, which is one of the most profitable companies in the world. And, I know at one point their founder was one of the richest men in the world. I think he was in the top 3. I have to look back. I need some fact checkers on these things, but I do believe that he was in the top 3. IKEA is making hand over fist a tremendous amount of profit with the systems that they have, and it's not even that. Don't even think about the modular. IKEA is actually doing it 2 ways. They're doing it both in that they're giving you modular parts to build out your office furniture or dining room or bedroom or whatever, but they're also doing it modularly on the construction side as well with a lot of interchangeable parts. IKEA only sells the stuff that they're making, so all those brand names are their own brands, and there are commonalities between the different manufacturing processes. And a very interesting thing that I did hear about IKEA is how the price point has actually gone down over time dramatically. We're talking like 80%. There was one chair and a table that they made that if you look at an IKEA catalog from the 90s, and I believe that's about the time it was starting to be popular. I know here in northern New Jersey, you're flying to Newark Airport, you see IKEA. That was the, off the right wing there. That was the first one that came in. I think it came in the late 90s. But anyway, these parts, the chair was something like $80, $90 when it first came out. Now you can get it for 20, and the table is something that I think it's $9.99. It's like a coffee table. When it first came out, somewhere in the 40s. And these are all rough numbers, but the point is they have been able to solidify their manufacturing process and lower the prices for the consumer, all by using this modularity and also scale, which is very interesting. So again, these are three different industries and where the modular concept is in use, whether it benefits the consumer or the manufacturer. And again, the commonality is highly efficient. Volkswagen, one of the most profitable, well, when they're not paying fines, the most profitable automakers in the world. Highly profitable on the consumer side. There's also a frugality to buying these modular systems. And the great thing that will apply to web design in a second, and I'm going to make the segue back in a minute, is that there's limited inputs. You have a limited amount of parts, but those parts can create an amazing combination of outputs, and that's directly going to relate to what we're going to talk about with web design. So how do you apply the concept to web design? Basically, web design has two methodologies in the post-CMS world. To take a step back, well, actually, we'll do that in a second because I know my next slide is going to talk about that. So let me just define what a template versus a module is. So a template, as I define it, is a predefined page structure that, when populated with content either dynamically or statically, constitutes a compiled web page. So on this example, you have a top nav, a bottom nav, a right menu, and maybe a left bucket of content. Anyone who's worked with WordPress in the past 10 years, excuse me, is probably familiar with that, broad concept of a template. On the right, and this is the way we need to start thinking, is the modular approach, which is a reusable component that, in combination with other modules, can be constructed into a complete web page. So this is a very different philosophy, and we're going to talk about those in a second. So let me just take a step back, tell you a little bit about template-based design, how we got to where we are. So back in the day, this is me aging myself a little bit, when I started in the web design business in 97, 98, one of my first jobs was actually working for a mechanical engineering consultant, and he had some intranet sites that we maintained for companies like IBM and Dassault and Autodesk rather. And these were basically places to do competitive analysis, and it was a ton of documents. We're talking 50, 60,000 documents. And he hired me as the webmaster because what I would do was we would take press releases and put them into this portal that we've developed for each of those customers. So basically what I would do is find this press release someplace, code it into HTML, make an HTML file, upload it via FTP, go back to a directory listing, link back to that, and this was all a manual process. Before I got there, the header and footer of each file was actually in the file. One of the things I figured out right away was, hey, we have to create some level of a template structure, so we put a footer and a header as an include, which was a pain because back then scripting was not as advanced as today. So this is an example of many documents living all by themselves, and then the CMS came out. So this, I think there were plays on CMS is probably going back into the early late 90s is when it really started. Some of the big ones today didn't come out till later. And the CMSs were great because from my perspective at that point, I mean, this is amazing. I can go and change, thousands of files with one edit to a template. That was great. So the methodology back then was it was groundbreaking stuff. Sites with tens of thousands of pages could have, a couple of templates that power it, changed my life dramatically. The first conversion to a CMS was a real pain trying to get the content in, but after that, it was a great thing to have. The sad thing is that over 15, 16 years, nothing's really changed. Technology's gotten better, and there's some new approaches, but the established CMSs are still utilizing the template method. And I'm looking directly in the face of WordPress and Drupal as on the open source side as being great examples of places that are template driven, WordPress being the key offender. So the pros of this, as I said already, it allowed for large websites to be, to be CMS driven relatively easily. It gave administrators options for page layouts. You could have more than one template to choose from. And templates really tied into almost every single CMS system because it was the methodology of the time, and they were built to handle that. But with pros come, negatives, and the negatives started to mount as these systems got more sophisticated. So today, I mean, templates are really an old concept, and the reason at a top level is that these CMS systems, we really have to start breaking them out into being web content management systems. These systems control web pages. They don't control content. And I'm going to talk about this again in a little bit. This is a very important philosophical difference that we have to speak about. So again, there's a difference between a content management system and a web content management system, because web content management systems were not set up to be content focused. They're actually set up just to be editor focused, and editors of websites. We're going to get into this in a little bit. So when I'm onboarding new customers and going through the sales process, one of the leading causes of customer dissatisfaction is how rigid templates are. They're rigid by design. That's what they're meant to do. They're meant to have a template is a template for a reason. It's something that you fill in later. They're not really meant to be flexible. They're highly dependent. One template file is going to be dependent on an overall theme. All this ties together, especially, and I'm going to be a little bit WordPress biased in how I go talking about this, simply because I think WordPress is a major threat in a lot of ways, and it's slowly infecting the enterprise environment. So that's why I'm going to bring it up. But basically, templates are going to be highly dependent on the theme that they're associated with, and that's a problem if you want to make changes along the way in the future. And my biggest thing, which is, I guess you could say this is opinion more than fact, but I think a lot of people would agree, templates have ushered in what I believe is a state of sameness across the internet. A lot of sites look the same, behave the same. It's because these templates are out there. You can buy them for $50, $60. People insert them into WordPress, and so many people, and I'm going to talk about this again in a second, but so many people are passing themselves off as designers and developers when they're really just themers. So these are all things that have been created out of the theming and templating concept. So, again, they're rigid. These systems are extremely rigid to work with. Here's an example of a screenshot from a customer of ours where you would choose a type of page, so maybe an events page. And when you pick that template, the left side of the WordPress editor is obviously going to show you a bunch of input boxes for each of those particular areas. But there's no flexibility to say, well, I want to put this part on top of that part, or I want to remove this part, or I want, you can't do that with the way that most WordPress sites are set up. So again, going back to templates and some of the negatives about it, I believe they're bad for the web in general. The ease of downloading and installing them, it's ushered this era of sameness, and I have a great blog post about this, and search in our blog for it. It's also commoditized web design to a certain extent, which has actually not helped the consumer, which is the marketer, the business owner. Why hire a designer if you can get a theme? But is a developer really a developer? Is the person telling you that they're going to custom build you a site really custom building it, or are they taking a theme? And is the person adept enough as a developer that they can get past the inevitable roadblocks that are going to be created, by the template system? So it's a messy situation. I feel like the industry, we have no oversight, we have no regulation. I'm not even sure that that's necessary, but I do feel like a lot of people get burned in hiring creative professionals or developers that really don't know what they're doing, and this has all been ushered in by the fact that these systems are out there, and while they do make life easier, as a professional developer, I don't need my life to be easier. I'm gonna, I have the right tools to use the right to come up with the right solution. But again, going beyond all that, and that's my state of the industry rant for today, the worst flaw, again, it's rigid, it's unwavering. And by the way, the image on the right there is just showing you, if you type in website template, this is what you're going to come up with, all these various different solutions that are going to give you very restrictive templates to be able to put your website up, and eventually you're going to be frustrated. So let's talk about modular. Let's stop talking about negatives, right? So imagine having pieces with a near limitless potential, and I know that sounds like a crazy type of promise, but that's the way you have to look at it. There will always be limits to technology or this or that, but you have to start to look at this as being the way that you can get much more control than you can get before. Here's a little screenshot of a wireframe we did for a customer showing a couple of different modules. We have a calendar module, we have a top navigation module, we have on the right side a hero with side stories, and then we have a 2-column module. These are parts. These parts are interchangeable. And the benefits, I'm going to go through 6 points of benefits in why you should consider doing this. The first is, continuous improvement is where it's at. And I'm going to talk about that again in a little bit, but it's not the cycle of building every 2 years for the sake of building. That's going away. And if you have a rigid template-based platform, continuous improvement is going to be difficult. Now, what do I mean by continuous improvement? Anybody who's a marketer knows what I'm talking about. You look at statistics, you look at user flows, user behavior, you take these insights, and then you make actionable change. That is very difficult to do with template-based systems. With these new modular systems, you could flip a module, change the ordering, make changes very easily and quickly to be able to actually do quantifiable tests. One of the things is that you can quickly, in additional enhanced controls, you can quickly prototype new pages. Today, to prototype new pages might involve talking to 5 different people to be able to do it. Now, the marketer knows that they can build a page on their live CMS that's hidden from the world, and they can set it up in a matter of minutes with all the modules that they need. And this all means less dependence on developers, which, it's a mixed bag for me because I admit I'm a developer at heart, but I'm also a marketer, and I know there's nothing more frustrating. Being the CEO of this company, and I do most of our marketing, is nothing more frustrating than trying to make a simple change and I can't do it, and I have to ask my developer to do it. That's a horrible feeling. So this approach has empowered me to be able to make the changes I need to make on a regular basis. And again, it means quicker development and deployment of pages. We're talking minutes. Another thing that we've seen is this amount of products out there for making landing pages. It's pretty remarkable to me how many SaaS platforms make landing pages, lead pages, HubSpot, Marketo, all these different tools that make landing pages. And while I understand from a marketing automation perspective how that tool is important as part of a suite, a service like lead pages is built specifically because CMSs can't handle the task. So you pay $100 a month or $200, whatever it is, dollars per month to lead pages to make landing pages in a couple of minutes. Well, let's face it, customers know that a landing page that looks nothing like the website is kind of like a disingenuous method of lead generation. At least I believe it. So wouldn't it be nice to be able to make landing pages that actually fit into your website in a matter of minutes as opposed to using an outside service? That's something that you can do with this new control. This is a great exercise to do. I recommend everybody try it. Take your site today and print out the individual pieces. Now, a good way to do this is to take a site like a home page or a landing page, because these pages have a lot of natural breaks, and chances are if you've designed your site in the past 3 years, it's going to look like one of these clean websites, because everybody that comes to us asks for a clean website, which, by the way, you have to stop asking for that because everybody asks for it, so don't even bother. But since everyone has these clean, long pages, this is an easy exercise. Print up your page, cut up those pieces and make some modules, put them on a desk, and contemplate the freedom you would have if you were able to move these things around yourself and change the content within the module. So here's an example of my custom CMS page. We split it up, we printed it, split it up into pieces, and we routinely can do this because this is how we think. We can sit down in a conference room and all work together to try to figure out how a new landing page should look, what modules we can reuse. It's a really fun exercise to do. This is a nice graphic that sort of summarizes this whole thing in terms of control. You can have less modules and have so much more output, like I said before. Less inputs, more outputs. So 7 modules here can make these 12 different combinations of pages, but really there could be so many more. And when you have those modules on the desk in front of you, going back to that exercise, you're going to start to understand the power of the system, because it's as simple as what you're doing on that desk. You're just moving pieces around, populating with content. And when we talk about technology, we're going to talk about how you populate the content, because you can do it statically or dynamically, which is extremely interesting as well. Benefit 2, this is easier to maintain. Maintaining pieces is always easier than maintaining templates. Templates, again, you have this dependency on each other. I'm going to skip to the third point. Modules are not dependent on each other as much as templates are. So there's less coding dependencies, means less technical debt. Now, technical debt Everybody knows this. After when you first have your website and it's been built for you, and you're going along, you're changing content, it's working great, and then a couple of months later you want to add a feature and you do a little hack, and then 3 months later you do another hack, and slowly over time you hack until suddenly things start to slow down, and maybe an update breaks, and it's still not doing exactly what you want. So you ask the developer to look at it again, but you can't figure it out because now the code is too complex. This is technical debt. This is just building. It's sort of like rolling a snowball down the hill in the cartoons, and it gets bigger, bigger, bigger. Great visual to think about what technical debt is. So again, just skipping back to point two, instead in terms of easier to maintain, a lot of times people spend a good amount of time figuring out how to change navigation or changing, footers or things like that. Well, those are parts too. These are all parts. So if you want to change your navigation, if you want to globally change what your top navigation looks like, just swap out the part. And I know I'm making it sound a little bit simpler because, everything's going to require a little bit of work, but it's going to be like a tenth of the work you're going to do versus hiring a designer, a developer, a QA guy, project manager, all these people to do one simple change for you. It's frustrating. So easier to maintain. This is a huge benefit, and if you're undergoing a web design project now, or if you have, internal company politics is huge when it comes to web design. A lot of times we come in and we have to serve almost as therapists to get a team together to be able to get through the approval process because everybody is scared of this concept of permanence. Basically, approvals and revisions are the biggest unknown factor in a design project. So if you want easier buy-ins from management, get rid of permanent decisions. Get rid of things that are going to stay forever. This on the right here, you see an old print template. That is a scary concept to a manager who thinks, I have to approve this now and it has to be right forever. I'm just going to make a pause. Think about that for a second. How often have you dealt with that situation? So the new cycle is, okay, we're building parts, and we're going to put the parts live, and done is going to be better than perfect, and we're going to revise it, and it's going to be easy to do. And I assure you management is going to be much more interested in that philosophy versus the idea of, I have to sign off on this, and this is the way it's going to be. I'm never going to be able to change it. It's a very, very scary process for them. And not only for management, but for people along the line who, let's face it, when you're undergoing a design project, that's a major initiative. That's going to mean a lot for your career. So a lot of people are going to be so afraid of making a mistake that they're going to be kind of paralyzed by it. Kind of modularity equals freedom to change things later, quickly, easily. You're never going to be handcuffed. And let's face it, every website is a learning experience in that they're a theory. You throw them out there, you use the best practices, but then based on feedback, analytics, user behavior, that's when you move to the next step of making positive improvements. So I think that this is a really big benefit for a lot of people, is being politically, it's just a better process, politically expedient. Benefit 4, cheaper to iterate, kind of in line with the other benefits that we spoke about. But it's not just cheaper to iterate. I should have really just made this cheaper in general, because from a budget perspective, you can go live. You can have a 10,000 page website go live with 5 or 6 modules, and you can add to it over time. So you have a faster time to market. That means cheaper budgets to be able to build it out. Ongoing maintenance, you want to add a new page, use the existing modules, or create a new one. But making a new module for a designer or developer, and you will probably need them to make modules that you want. It's going to be fast because there's so few dependencies. So it's going to be something that should take a third of the time to do versus when you did it the first time. It's not building a template, and I think people are so scared because in the past, as I have here, you make a new template, well, hire the designer and do a mock-up, hire a developer, work it into the thing, go through a deployment, QA, all this garbage that you have to do. Well, now drop in a new module into your system and put that in conjunction with the other modules together to make a page. It's a totally different process. So again, and these benefits are all very much related in a lot of ways, but quicker development. Even for the designer and developer that you do have to bring in, it means that instead of looking at so much code that's there, they could just look at the overall code style guide and then come up with a new module and drop it into the system. So they could prototype these things near instantly. It could be very fast to do. And because of the flexibility of how these modules operate, it's going to completely change your ongoing development lifecycle. And we know this because, again, like I said in the beginning of the call, we've been doing this for years. So we have actual tangible proof that this is the way it works. Huge benefit here. No more redesigns. Before I get into the points, this thing on the right, look at this little model that we have here. It shows what the normal mode is. You work for 3 months, and I'm being very generous, by the way. You work for 3 months to go through a redesign, and then your site sits for a year and a half to 2 years, and then you repeat the process. In reality, I mean, a redesign could take some companies a year. It could take you 6 months, a year. 3 months is pretty aggressive. But this process it's not sustainable. It's not the way that we want to move. We want to move into a mold of, hey, your next redesign, it's going to be a project, and we're going to get through it quickly, quicker than we would because of the modular methodology. But after that, you're not going to have to do a global redesign. You're going to iterate, and we call that continuous improvement. So that means in the future, you're not going to have a global redesign. You're going to have a targeted redesign. So if you want to change your top and bottom navigation, change those 2 modules, push it live. If you want to change certain color schemes, we'll go to the modules and make a global, find and replace on the color schemes in the code. If you're really wise about how you build out the CMS, make that an option there. I mean, there's so many ways that you can do it, but make minor targeted redesigns and changes based off of statistics. Do it based off of information. Don't do it based off of, oh, well, I guess it's time to redo the site, which is pretty much what every old school manager would say. Well, it's been 2 years, and I looked at my competitors, and their site's pretty good, so I guess we'll go and spend 100 grand on a new site, and we'll deal with it again in 3 years. That's not the way to look at it. You really have to look at it as an ongoing commitment, which should mean lower upfront costs, but will mean more ongoing costs in terms of client-agency relationships. But again, why wait 3 years to analyze results? Why not wait 3 weeks and see how it's doing, how a new website is doing, and then iterate on that? So this is something that I think everyone has to focus on. Get through your first project, build in the modular style, and then from there work to continuously improve things based on the objectives of your company and based on analytics and where you see room for improvement. Just take a drink here real quick. So, modular requirements. So this is a new approach, and it does require special tools. And not necessarily special tools, but the proper tools. So, and that reminds me of a story, and this is completely unrelated. A friend of mine gets locked out of his car, and AAA comes, and the guy says, do you want me to break the window, or do you want me to use special tools? What do you think? So let's talk about this really quick. This is what I believe is the ideal content management architecture. It goes back to the line that I had at the beginning where I said, hey, you have to be content first. Everybody needs to start thinking about this. The old school methodology is an integration of content management and display. The CMS of the future is going to break out content from display because display is going to happen in a lot of different ways. So basically this chart is telling you, on the left you have your content management system, which controls your content, which is blogs, images, videos, people, like a CRM, like a database, people, data. It could be products, it could be services, it could be anything, locations. This is all types of content. This needs to be stored in one centralized place. And then from there, it needs to be communicated out to different displays. So in the future, and I'm going to really work hard to make sure people understand this difference, content management and web content management are 2 different things. The focus of our call today is on the modularity in terms of display, and that happens in the orange ball here, which is your web CMS or your web experience manager or your digital experience manager or any other name or acronym that you want to give it. We have to start looking at that as being the web experience and separate that from the content management, because in an example I'm going to show you in a little bit, it's a news publisher. Videos is their #1 key piece of content. That should never be built in a WordPress or a Drupal or something like that. It should always be built in something that's more customized and focuses on that type of content first. And by doing that, we're making these content management systems not into content management only, but also into content creation systems. So we use these systems to actually build the content, not just to store it. And from there you distribute it via API to a mobile app, or maybe some other type of mobile tablet app, or maybe you distribute it to partners or to other types of feeds over the OTT devices. And then the web is, of course, one particular part of that process. So the focus of today is on the web content management system or the web experience manager. That's where you really would focus on modular. And we're going to talk about this in a little bit, how you tie your content to your modules. So do we have a CMS problem? The CMS platforms today are, and I see questions coming in. Cool. The CMS platforms of today, they're heavily focused on templates. These are the WordPresses, the Drupals, the Sitecores, these DNNs. These systems are based on integrating your admin portal with your front end into one comprehensive unit. And there are tons of reasons not to do this. Security is a major one. And we're going to do our next webinar about that, and I'll preview that in a little bit. But that's how they're focused. They're focused on templates. There are modular plugins, and I see another question coming in. There are, and I will get to those later. Modular plugins do exist. There's Divi for WordPress, but again, they're not native. These are plugins, and plugins introduce a whole other world of problems. Divi, for example, and I know a little bit about it, is making this broad claim that they can make any theme into a modular format. I have no idea how you can do that. You know, to do modular design right, it starts with content, then design, and the technology follows. That's why custom solutions make the most sense for this methodology. And not that I'm pushing that, because that's primarily what we do, but that's just the reality of the situation. You're always going to be trying to fit what is a square peg into a round hole if you're going it the other way, you know, in reverse. Again, plugins, they're there. They work the wrong way. They're looking at technology first, not content first. And also, you know, some of these CMSs that are out there today, part of the problem, they're built with a predetermined notion of content and what it means. WordPress focuses on pages and posts. Now they have, you know, it's custom data types now, and they're even trying to make themselves into a headless, decoupled type of platform, but it's still based on this framework that is, you know, 10, 15 years old, but that where posts and pages are the only content that matters. That's why they're not built for the future. And, you know, again, I pick on WordPress the most. Everybody knows it. It is creeping into the enterprise in places where I don't think it belongs. It is good for certain things. My personal blog runs on it. I do not recommend putting it into an enterprise situation. And when I preview the security webinar, I'll tell you a little bit about it. So this graphic, I use it a lot. It basically summarizes my feeling about most of the CMSs out there. You have your admin and your experience, your user experience plugged into one unit. And then they're held together. All these plugins are installed and held together with tape. Pretty much summarizes how these systems work. So, what's the ideal CMS? It organizes content into logical, understandable groups. It understands that the website is just one possible method of distribution. It allows for content to be integrated into modules, both, this is very important, both statically and dynamically, which means that you can edit your module and put content in manually, statically, or you can dynamically set a rule to fill it. I know I'm going to get the question, so I will refer to Drupal in this case. Drupal does a pretty good job with blocks of being able to do this function, which is populating statically or dynamically. But again, it's not based on the same methodology that we have in terms of content and design. A good CMS is going to allow you, and this is especially on the web CMS side, it's going to allow you to drag and drop and manipulate the modules. We think that that's very important for non-technical people to be able to use. The CMS has to be more visual than it is today. You know, most of the people that are working on websites are going to be marketers, and these are visual people. So you need to have a tool set that allows for that. And, you know, in order to have creative, unique front-end experiences, decoupling is really going to be the future of the CMS, and we have a whole webinar about it. I'm going to refer to it 5 times, I'm sure, while I'm talking to you. It is the future for a variety of reasons, but you have to look at how front-end versus back-end technology works. Front-end technology iterates and advances much quicker than back-end. I mean, back in 2001, I was working on, you know, LAMP stacks, which is Linux, Apache, MySQL, PHP. We're still using pretty much the same software. It's been iterated, but it's the same software. Maybe we're moving away from MySQL a little bit with some of the new databases out there. On the front end, the technology available today is not even related, at the least, to what we were using back then. I mean, yeah, HTML, but back then I don't even know what the version number was. So front end is moving much faster, and there is a really great chance that your next front end, you know, design, you'll be able to keep the modular format for a while, but you're probably going to update the modules to React and to make changes as time goes on. Whereas on the back end, your next CMS could last you 5, 6, 7. I have clients who's on a CMS that's 10 years old. It's the same one, but we've been, you know, focusing on this headless methodology for a while. So this is what the ideal CMS would do. Now, think about your website for a second. It's the only front-end experience that really, you know, this is the only place to tie your content to the user. This is where you make the connection. It's a merger of content and user experience. So your modular interface, the web CMS, again, this is the glue. This is where you put these concepts together. So a quick review of where we've been. You know, we know that modular design will, you know, eliminate massive future redesigns. We know the focus is on reusable parts versus templates. We know the problem is limitations of CMSs, but we do believe there are definitely ways to do it. So how do you go modular? First, you can find plugins that can integrate into the CMSs that you have. Again, I think they fall short. I don't think it's completely in line with the methodology that we're espousing here, but there are things out there like Divi, and there's a host of other ones as well. So you could definitely try to do that to get some of the benefits of this approach. I prefer option 2, which is go with a customized solution, because if plugins fill the gaps for native functionality that's missing. They're never native. They're plugins. That's why they're called plugins. So to try to do this methodology, it's sort of like a marriage that, I don't know, it's not destined to last. I just don't think that it's the elegant way to do it. A customized solution could take you a lot further. We believe the ideal customized solution right now is the headless or decoupled concept. So I do encourage you to watch our webcast CMS of the Future, where we talk heavily just about the decoupled philosophy and some of the benefits of it. So with that, I'm going to dig in a little bit to some examples. This is one of our customers, newsy.com, great website for news. I said great. I see a picture of the president there. Great, it's the greatest. Go to this website, have a look, and you'll see how it's a modular layout. So on this particular page, we have your top navigation module. Then we have this hero image with 3 items on the right, module, and then underneath top stories, again, a module. Now, in their admin, they have the ability to control what the order of the modules are and what type of module. So again, we have top stories. The type here is 3 across. Look back here, and obviously top stories is underneath what they have it as separated as a hero. You can see there's the 3 across. Now, underneath that, they have an ad, and then maybe another 3 across, and an ad, and a 3 across, each of different topics. Now, the power of this is when they click on one, they can go in and set where the content's coming from, either statically or dynamically. So their content is primarily video. In this case, they say, okay, make a presidential inauguration, module, and link it to this particular topic. It's going to be 3 across. Automatically pull everything that's a video associated with the topic of presidential inauguration. And on the bottom, they have a quick way to generate what the module looks like to get a preview. So this is how, in their particular instance, this has been built. A lot of different ways to build it. Every solution is different. Again, this isn't a product approach. This is the approach of, this is a building out something customized for you. But here are some other examples of modules. The 3 across the inauguration that we saw, there's an ad, there's a 3x2, another ad, there's another, what do you call, a hero image. Sorry about the little brain lapse there. There's a hero image, which, by the way, is the same hero image you might use at the top of a page. They're using it in the middle of a page in this example. That's flexibility. So this is a great example of modular design connecting to a decoupled system that knows that its focus is video as a piece of content. Here's another example, which is a customer. It's an informational marketing site, but they like to change around landing pages very often. Modular for them makes a lot of sense. So you have a left image with right text, left text, right image, all done through a WYSIWYG editor. You don't need any technical knowledge to do it. On the right, we have a simple text editor, 1 column, and then another left-right, and then another 2 column. In this case, it has an embedded form, because you can definitely do that as well. Why not make modules recursive, so they contain each other? This is a quick screenshot we took of an admin interface that we built for a customer. This one allows you to choose a module through this overlay. So you might say, I want a news module, and then what will happen is it'll integrate into a draggable content management screen here on the next page. So in this particular case, they have a hero image, which is right now 1 module, 100% of the page. Underneath that, they have a content area where they have a left-right type of module arrangement, and the one on the right is a social featured tweet, and the one on the left is a featured blog post. All things that they can set themselves. So again, very flexible. It gives them the freedom to create pages on the fly in a very quick way. So I see a couple of questions. If anyone has any questions, send it through right now. I'm just taking a drink of my water here, and then go through what we have. Okay. So the first one is, this was back when we were talking about Just back when we were talking about the modular, I made a note of this. Doesn't WordPress do this already? And that was Bill. And again, WordPress tries to do these things. I believe we were talking at this point about, yeah, we're talking about modular pieces. It does it with plugins, but again, I think I've said enough about WordPress and plugins and all that, great stuff, and how it doesn't necessarily, work perfectly together. Anthony, will this be recorded? Yeah, it's recorded. It's going to go online shortly after. And what else? Another question, doesn't WordPress do this? Man, everyone's so hung up on WordPress. Let it go. like Elsa would say, let it go. Again, it doesn't do it natively. It's built on a methodology 10 or 15 years old. And I'm not going to spend all my time picking on WordPress like crazy, but it's not built to do this. It's built for one particular set of content in one particular distribution method, which is the web. That might work great if you have a simplistic business. And I'm not calling your business simple, but I'm saying if you have a business that just needs an informational website or a site that doesn't change a lot, then yeah, by all means, WordPress might work for you. I would say be very concerned about security. And then the last one is, how can you tell if you have a web CMS versus a content management system? Yeah, that's a great question. It's all I don't even know how to answer that, to be honest, because it's so complex. I mean, that might be a topic of a whole other webinar. I mean, first off, if you can't tell, you got to get a little bit educated about the differences so you can. I mean, this is really, if you're on this webinar, you're a high-end enough user, or you're going to be acquiring a service, I think you have to do a little bit of education, or go through a little bit of education about the topic. I would say check out a lot of the resources we have. Look at the blog, look at some of the other webinars, look at the downloadable ebooks. Dig into that. A top-level way of looking is anything that focuses on content creation of web pages is a web CMS, and that's going to be probably 95% of the stuff you're going to see out there. Everything is web-based. If you're starting a video distribution channel, image database, certain types of SaaS apps, I mean, all those things have to happen with content management systems, and they're going to be done in a better scalable way by having a custom solution that focuses on the content type. So I hope that helps out a little bit. And any more? I don't see any more. So real quick, I'll wait for a couple more, but let me just talk about the next one. Really important topic. It's going to be how to design and deploy a secure CMS. Real quick, I'm just going to summarize. It was in the news 2 weeks ago. Rudy Giuliani, he owned a cybersecurity consulting company, and he got appointed by the new administration to be the cybersecurity, I guess you could say, czar, although I don't know if I use that term anymore. And very quickly, the internet, sometimes you gotta love the internet, like a bunch of vigilantes went out there and found out that his website wasn't secure. It was 4 years old. It was running on an old Joomla. The back-end software wasn't secure. There was no firewall. I think someone found 41 different vulnerabilities. And this got me to thinking, if he doesn't get it right and he's selling cybersecurity consulting services, how many other cybersecurity companies have this problem? So we had our intern over here go through and audit 500 sites, the top 500 cybersecurity companies, according to a 2016 listing, and we found 298 out of 500 have some level of vulnerability in their platform. And I would say 99% of those are WordPress, a little Drupal, a little Joomla, but most are WordPress. And I think that this is scary, and this is something that, it's kind of indicative of a problem in our industry that the companies out there speaking about cybersecurity can't even get it right themselves and are choosing insecure platforms. So that's going to be our topic. It'll be the 28th of February. We're going to do it at 2 p.m. I hope to see you there. You'll be able to, someone's asking how do you sign up. You're going to see a ton of emails, and we're going to be adding some new features to the website for signups. So we would definitely look forward to seeing you there. That'll be the fifth webinar we're doing. This is the fourth, so pretty exciting stuff. In the meantime, I'm going to talk quick because I'm using up all the time. Any other resources that you should look at include our blog. Take a look at our blog. Tons of great content going up there. Did a post yesterday about the modular methodology. It's a nice long post. Talks about everything I spoke about today. If you want a little bit of background. With the video section, we're going to have an archive of this up there. The other webinars are there. Some other cool animated videos as well. And of course, the main resources page will take you to ebooks that are available for download. I highly recommend the CMS of the future. So not having any more questions, I'm going to let everybody go. So from cloudy New Jersey, and by the way, this is where we are, Little Falls, New Jersey, about 15 miles out of Manhattan. So from cloudy and cold and rainy New Jersey, Hope everyone has a great day, and we'll see you on the 28th, 2 p.m., talking about security. So take care, everybody.